This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
Most AI tools at work don't know anything about you. Every time, you're stuck re-explaining your projects, your team, what actually matters. Slack just fixed that. The all-new Slack bot is a personal AI agent built into Slack, and it starts with your context, your messages, files, and channels. Translation, an AI that already knows how you work. Check it out at slack.com. This week kind of seemed like upside down week in AI. I mean, let's look at the headlines. Microsoft is starting a new company with billions of dollars and thousands of employees. Anthropic is going to start making drugs. The world's most powerful AI model will no longer be available via subscription in a few days. And maybe even a weirder one, OpenAI is reportedly considering giving up to 5% in equity to the federal government. Yeah, let's take some time to sort out this week's AI news and see if we can't enter this week standing right side up. Let's get into it. Welcome to Everyday AI. If you're new here, my name's Jordan Wilson, and well, we do this every day. This is your daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter helping everyday business leaders like you and me keep up with the AI madness because, yeah, sometimes it seems like we're flipped upside down. I help you every day make sense of it and help you make smart decisions to grow your company and career. So it starts here with the unedited, unscripted live stream and podcast. But please make sure, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and go to our website at youreverydayai.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter. We're going to be recapping the highlights from today's show and a whole lot more. So let's get into it. A ton to cover. So let's start with Microsoft. Yes, Microsoft started a new company as they invested $2.5 billion in a new AI client services company called New Frontier Company. Yeah, so Microsoft Frontier Company, sorry, is the exact name. So Microsoft making a major push to help businesses adopt AI with that $2.5 billion investment in the new group called Microsoft Frontier Company. So Microsoft will also embed 6,000 employees directly with clients to support AI adoption using the model now very commonly known as forward deployed engineering, or FDEs. We've seen OpenAI and Anthropic and Google make similar plays, but Microsoft taking it kind of almost a step further with a $2.5 billion commitment of its own and 6,000 employees. So the new division brings together existing Microsoft engineers, technical consultants, support staff, and salespeople with deep industry experience. So the move comes just days after Amazon announced a $1 billion initiative for similar AI support services, highlighting the fierce competition among tech giants to lead in AI business solutions. Yeah, weird. Everyone's becoming a consultant now. So Microsoft's approach aims to help clients navigate tough decisions, such as which AI models to use, like, do you use OpenAI or Anthropic's models? Well, Microsoft is a big investor in each. So maybe that's a leg up that the new company, Microsoft Frontier Company, will pitch when they're like, hey, you should hire us to help you use AI versus, hiring OpenAI or Anthropic's deployment companies because we use all of their models. So the company says its platform supports more AI models and integrations than competitors like Palantir, which popularized the forward deploy engineering role in the tech world before all the AI or the large language model companies, I guess, got into the race. Microsoft has invested tens of billions of dollars in data centers for generative AI and offers, obviously, many AI-powered tools and solutions from, the dozens of Copilot offerings across their tech stack. But Microsoft, so far, their stock is down a bit this year. They're actually down about 20% year to date, the biggest drop among the major tech companies, partly due to concerns that AI could disrupt established software markets. So the company did, though, generate about $2 billion in revenue from enterprise and partner services last quarter, up 2.5% from a year earlier. So, yeah, this one, not necessarily surprising that Microsoft is starting its own deployment company, but maybe surprising that they committed $2.5 billion and 6,000 employees, especially since Microsoft is in the middle of a lot of cuts, right? They've cut thousands of employees and kind of pushing the early retirement portion as well. So it's one of those things that I think that every single big company that is building any type of AI will have these forward deployed engineers, because what we've seen more than anything else, I think especially it's become very clear over the last year that even companies that are usually somewhat agile and can adopt to new digital technologies, well, hardly no company out there has been able to close the capability gap between what AI models can actually do and what the majority of their employees are actually using it for, right? Which is why huge companies like OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, right? Everyone, they're now coming up with these roles where their employees go in, work at these other companies and help them essentially use their tools. So it's something we'll probably do a deeper dive later. Like, what does an FTE role look like, right? What are these companies coming in to do? Because I know not every single listener out there is going to be able to, at their enterprise, bring in, Microsoft FTE or an OpenAI or Anthropic FTE into their organization. So we'll probably unpack later what that actually looks like. All right. Speaking of still living in upside down world, Anthropic is gonna make drugs now. Yeah, it's apparently a thing. So Anthropic has announced Claude Science, an AI workbench designed to streamline scientific research by integrating fragmented tools and data sets into a single environment. So yeah, they're making waves with the new Claude Science, trying to make their splash in the pharma sectors. As they launch into with Claude Science, as they launch into drug discovery. So the new Claude Science platform generates figures and visuals aiming to help scientists accelerate the pace of discovery and healthcare innovation. Anthropic, though, is already a leading provider of coding tools and AI models, right? We all know that, with a strong presence among biotech and pharma customers. So at a recent briefing event called The Briefing, AI for Science, Anthropic revealed plans to help develop drugs faster, focusing on treatments for neglected diseases. So this marks one of the most direct attempts by a major AI company to move in drug development rather than just selling AI to other drug makers. So the announcement puts Anthropic in a unique position, as it will both be a software provider and a potential competitor to its pharma clients. And yeah, you're going to want to stick around for this piece later when we talk about Mythos and Fable 5 kind of coming back and the data retention policy, because I think it's going to come into play now that we see companies like Anthropic spinning up completely new companies and maybe competing against others that they have access to their data. So Anthropic joins a growing race that includes AI first drug companies like InSilico, Google DeepMind's Isomorphic Labs, and established pharma giants building or buying their own AI tools. So Anthropic has not provided detailed information yet about its drug development goals or what it will do if it discovers promising candidates, but they did say, along with this new announcement with Claude Science, that they are going to be working in drug developments. All right. More and more big tech companies doing new things. So yes, first Microsoft with their new Microsoft Frontier company, Anthropic, going to be trying to discover drugs. And now Meta is a neo cloud. They're selling compute. All right, so Meta Platforms is launching their own subsidiary called MetaCompute. a new cloud infrastructure business that will sell the company's excess AI computing capacity to outside customers. So the move positions Meta as a direct competitor to Amazon with their AWS, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft's Azure, and Google Cloud, marking a major shift beyond Meta's traditional focus on consumer apps and digital advertising. So, Meta's stock did close up about 6% late last week, but still down a little bit month over month and year over year. So, the company aims to turn its significant investment in AI data centers into a new, in what they hope, a potentially high margin revenue stream by targeting enterprise technology budgets. So the success of MetaCompute will depend on how quickly the company can attract paying cloud customers and whether this new business offsets the heavy capital spending on AI infrastructure. So MetaCompute represents the company's clearest attempt yet to monetize its multi-gigawatt AI infrastructure, which has so far mainly powered internal products like ads and recommendations. And for those customers, maybe that are using Meta's new Muse Spark model. Haven't really met them yet. But entering the cloud market puts Meta in direct competition with established players and also raises questions about how existing cloud providers and AI chip suppliers will respond to a new large scale entrant. So, this one, when you look at it now, maybe not super surprising, right? Meta has been one of the leaders in building out infrastructure for AI, right? They've uh, started along with probably, X, formerly known as Twitter, right? So all of, well, now I think they're technically known as SpaceX, right? It's all of Elon Musk's companies combining into one. I think they've been the leader in getting new these gigawatt compute factories up and running. But Meta is definitely one of the big names, right? And being able to essentially churn out these large data centers. They obviously were using them before to power, the Meta networks. So now when they're trying to use this for their own models, well, kind of the chatter and some of the anonymous reporting is like, well, yeah, this makes sense for Meta because they built out all of this infrastructure, right? All of this tremendous CapEx spend, right? Billions of dollars buying all these, buying and building all these factories and bringing all this compute online. And well, people are saying, well, yeah, Meta's selling it now because they're not using it, right? That's the allegations, anyways, is that Meta is getting into this business is well because they built up all of this. It's kind of like the supply and the demand. They built the supply, assuming that their models, right, whether externally, people using the new Meta Muse model, which I actually think is a pretty good model. I know people kind of have poo-pooed on it. I think it's, pretty good. And we'll see what Alexander Wang and Zuckerberg and crew bring out with the next Meta models. But regardless, there's not many companies that are sitting there saying, hey, we have a ton of extra compute. Let's build it. Surprisingly, or let's sell it. Surprisingly enough, right? The other company that did it successfully, albeit, is, SpaceX slash X slash Rock slash Elon Musk's companies, right? And you can make the same argument for them that they didn't really have the demand. They thought everyone's going to be using Grok. Turns out not a lot of people are, but they've successfully, very successfully, by the way, SpaceX has been putting out all of these longer term partnerships where they're selling compute. So now Meta looks like is hoping to take a page out of SpaceX's or X's book when maybe they were preparing for more demand for their AI models. It wasn't there. And then they quickly sold it or rented it out to companies, well, like Anthropic. All right. So here's an interesting one that I didn't think was going to make a splash on this week's AI news, but looking at its potential long-term ramifications, I think this new move from Cloudflare definitely, requires us to spend a little bit of time on it. So here's what's new. Cloudflare has announced that they are blocking some AI crawlers on ad-supported pages, which could reshape how well humans and AI bots access the web. So, starting in September, Cloudflare will default to blocking AI training and agent crawlers on ad supported pages while still allowing search crawlers. And that's a shift that could affect a large share of the web because, well, Cloudflare essentially runs like half of the internet. So the key change is that Cloudflare will judge crawlers by what they do, not just who they are, meaning that mixed use crawlers that handle both search and AI training could be blocked from training access if publishers choose that setting. Here's why that's important. Cloudflare says that these mixed use crawlers account for about 36% of crawler activities. So you're like, okay, what's these crawlers? Why do they impact me? Well, the big one is Googlebot. You know, how your company probably has gotten over the years a lot of business, a lot of visibility from Google search. Yeah. So now a lot of publishers may just go click that block button and, well, maybe it's a good thing. It might be a bad thing. That's not for us to determine here on this news recap show. But those bots tied to companies like Google, Apple, and Microsoft may now face new limits when their search and training functions overlap. So for publishers, the move creates new leverage because public content is no longer treated as automatically free training material for these big AI companies, especially on pages designed to earn revenue from human readers through ads. So, according to reports, Cloudflare is moving from a pay per crawl marketplace toward a pay per use model using the new X402 standard, an open payment protocol reportedly backed by Cloudflare, Stripe, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. So the risk is that AI answers could start favoring large publishers with these licensing deals, making smaller blogs, local news sites, and niche experts harder to find, which matters for anyone building a career or company around online visibility. So this one, another one to keep an eye on, right? A lot of times we're not paying much attention to the plumbing, right? To the AI plumbing, the data centers, but also things like this, right? I think we become maybe overly reliant on search inside of AI, right? So when you go and you use ChatGPT or Codex or Claude or Claude Code or Google Gemini, etc., right? Almost every single query, whether you see it or not, is pulling from the web. So there's obviously been a lot of uproar in the publishing community over the past 2 to 3 years as more and more of that direct traffic is now just kind of ingested inside of these answers that come inside of these chatbots. And well, what does that actually mean? Well, it means a lot of things because chances are you might want someone to land on your page and become your customer. Or in the case in this example of what Cloudflare is kind of talking about here, well, maybe you get a little penny from Google AdSense or something like that, for every certain number of users that end up on your page. So for those people who are more, trying to draw, readers in the masses to come to their website and they just get paid by putting ads on their website, right? They've obviously been hit very hard as well by AI, by big AI companies essentially consuming all of this information and then just more or less kind of displaying I guess, collection of the answers, right, inside of the AI chatbot. So this one from Cloudflare, definitely one to keep an eye on. All right, let's take a quick break for a word from our partners.
Here's what most AI tools still can't do: work outside their own little box. The all-new Slack bot just changed that. It's your AI teammate inside Slack, and now it can read, write, and act across the other apps your team already uses. No more tool switching, no more re-explaining yourself every time you open a new tab. One ops team at Engine says the summary feature alone saves them 15 to 20 minutes a use. See what Slackbot can do at slack.com.
All right, now we've got a lot of news when it comes to AI models and the US government. Yeah, we're going to get to Fable and Mythos and even something with OpenAI, maybe partnering with the federal government. But first, we have some new news and developments when it comes to this new voluntary model standards as part of President Trump's executive orders on AI models. So the US government is moving closer to announcing new voluntary standards for AI models, a step aimed at tightening oversight and addressing national security concerns. So, according to reports, the U.S. is in advanced talks with leading AI companies to create voluntary standards for releasing new AI models, with an announcement expected as soon as this week. So, the new standards would set clear benchmarks for advanced AI models, establish release timelines, and clarify who can access these technologies both in the U.S. and internationally. National security is a driving concern, with Washington seeking to prevent misuse of powerful American AI by military intelligence services in China, Russia, and other countries of concern. So in June, President Donald Trump issued an executive order requiring federal agencies to work with top AI developers and AI labs to test advanced models before public release and to draft new standards for their deployment. Google has been actively involved in discussions with the government, according to reports, particularly regarding the release of advanced coding models with more sophisticated capabilities. So, the U.S. Commerce Department recently lifted export controls on Anthropic's Fable and Mythos models just weeks after suspending them due to national security concerns. Then we heard from OpenAI when they announced their GPT 5.6 about a week and a half ago, said that they were doing this tiered release. They weren't releasing it to the public, and they were only releasing it to trusted testers that had been essentially vetted by the government or approved between OpenAI, the testers, and the government. So both OpenAI and Anthropic are preparing for IPOs, which makes this news with the government extremely interesting and one to watch, making government oversight and standards especially relevant for their business strategies. And then these voluntary standards could impact how quickly new AI tools reach businesses, developers, and the public, potentially slowing releases but increasing safety and transparency. So this is what we all knew was going to be coming, right? The debacle between Anthropic and the US government obviously was right. We knew something like that was going to happen. Anthropic and the US government had been going tit for tat since, like, I don't know, February. So we knew when, Anthropic spent a couple of months hyping up how dangerous, their Mythos model was, and it was a cyber weapon, and they were begging for, government involvement, essentially, right? We knew that that was going to happen. But this is a new development that we see that the companies and the U.S. government might be close to announcing something this week on a set of actual standards. Because one thing that Anthropic responded to, when they announced and released Mythos and Fable on a Friday, and then by the weekend, it was essentially pulled, right? So this model was quote unquote out in the public for like 2 or 3 days. It was pulled. And, it seemed like there was not going to be a good way to have these set of rules and safeguards that every single company would have to play by, right? According to reports, essentially, we heard it was Amazon CEO that ultimately flagged this to the U.S. government and said, "Hey, our team here at Amazon found this jailbreak or this vulnerability in the Mythos model." They told that to the U.S. government, and then the U.S. government essentially said, "All right, well, you got to pull it immediately." Anthropic, right? And Anthropic didn't really have a way to do this. They didn't have a process to go through to appeal it. So this is good news, I think, for all AI companies, especially here in the US. Yes, we were supposed to have, new models from OpenAI and Google that were supposed to land in June. Things have been delayed, but I think ultimately a couple of weeks of delays for ultimately a more secure, more strictly vetted AI is probably for the benefit of all of us. So this is one of those things, hey, a couple of weeks of patience and getting something set up with the government, even though you don't want to go into the state of sovereign AI, it's probably for the best versus just having all of these one-off reactions. Because if your business, as an example, let's just say your business shut down for a day and said, all right, we're reworking our entire organization around Mythos, and then Mythos drops, right? And it was gone for 19 days, right? 19 days. If your company did that, you may have been kind of screwed, right? I'm sure most companies didn't do that, but that's just an example on why I think we need this set of streamlined safeguards and accountability between the US government and the AI companies. All right. Speaking of that, yeah, the other news is, well, Fable 5 is now back. It's actually back. So Anthropic has reinstated its advanced Fable 5 model after a 19-day global suspension. And they did add some kind of aggressive new cybersecurity classifiers to address the US government concerns about that jailbreak exploit that I just talked about. So Anthropic says the new classifier blocks over 99% of the previously reported exploit attempts, but it is also so strict that it frequently misidentifies harmless software development, coding, and even simple personal biology related prompts as security risks. So when a prompt triggers a new safety filter, Anthropic says the system automatically reroutes the task to Claude Opus 4.8 instead of Fable 5 or Mythos 5, whatever you may be using, and then notifies the user. That's good. It actually notifies them, leading to a noticeable increase in false positives for regular users. So that is, I guess, the good news is that after a 19-day delay, Mythos 5 and Fable 5, which is essentially Mythos 5 with guardrails, are back. But here's the downside. It's not truly back for most people. So yeah, look at your watch. It's going to be gone for most users tomorrow again. That's because Anthropic is not going to include Fable 5, and Mythos 5 wasn't available anyways, but Fable 5 had been available if you were a paid subscriber. So that's no longer the case. So after Tuesday, tomorrow, Anthropic says that Fable 5 access will only be if you are paying those very expensive API prices. They did hint and say, maybe we'll bring it back in the future if we have enough compute, but the only promise is that it's going to be gone in a matter of hours. So Anthropic says the restriction is due to the model's high computational demands and the current infrastructure limits, and they do hope that they might be able to restore broader access once capacity improves. So before you go and rush out and, have your company use all the limits you can in the next day or two, it is important to remind people that the updated Fable 5 and Mythos 5 explicitly overrides zero data retention. So yeah, that whole ZDR thing that makes anything in enterprise possible. Yeah, that's out the window because all inputs and outputs in Fable 5 and Mythos 5 are stored for at least 30 days, even for those enterprise clients who previously had strict privacy guarantees. So if a user's prompt is flagged as a potential policy violation, which we've seen can be literally anything, the data can be held for up to 2 years for human review, and then automated safety scoring data may be stored for up to 7 years to monitor abuse patterns, according to, Anthropic's privacy policy. So that's the reason that big enterprises like Microsoft banned internal use. Yes, Microsoft, the company that is one of Anthropic's largest investors and makes a ton of money selling Anthropic's AI through their systems, banned internal use of Mythos and Fable because you can't get away with them taking your data. There's no way around it. All right. And yes, that is a first for enterprise AI. Has never happened before. So they became the first frontier AI provider to essentially say, hey, yeah, even if you're an enterprise company paying us millions of dollars, yeah, we're going to keep your data. So just keep that in mind before you say, oh my gosh, we have this Fable thing for another 30 some hours. Let's go out and dump our company's entire code base. Or you remember how Anthropic is, well, trying to go down the drug discovery route. Maybe you're a pharma company and saying, hey, we pay all this money for, enterprise subscriptions to Anthropic. We should all go, use our Fable 5 and see what we can cook up. Yeah, you might want to pause on that, at least talk to your legal and your IT. And I don't know, maybe take a page out of Microsoft's book and don't do it. All right. Last but not least, maybe the ultimate curveball in our upside down AI week. OpenAI is reportedly considering giving the US government a 5% stake in the company. So, according to reports, OpenAI is in early discussions to offer the US government a 5% stake in the company. So the talks are part of efforts by major AI firms to improve relations with the Trump administration as regulatory pressure on the industry increases, according to reports. So OpenAI CEO Sam Altman is advocating for the US public to have a financial stake in the company, aiming to share the economic benefits of AI development more broadly. So the proposal could see other leading US companies, including Anthropic, Google, and Meta, asked to give similar stakes to the government, though the participation is not confirmed. And yeah, reports said that at least Anthropic and the US government had not yet had these similar talks as OpenAI and the US government have. So the plan is actually inspired by the Alaska Permanent Fund, which invests oil revenue for public benefits and could require an act of Congress to implement. So the discussions are right now being described as conceptual and at an early stage with no formal agreement yet in place. So the move comes as Washington intensifies oversight of AI companies, highlighted by the obvious Anthropic recent suspension of its latest model due to those national security concerns. So both OpenAI and Anthropic have previously floated the idea of a public or sovereign wealth fund to distribute AI-generated wealth to citizens. OpenAI and Anthropic are also both obviously preparing to go public, and it is estimated that both companies are going to come in valued at more than $1 trillion at their market cap. So Altman has reportedly discussed the idea with President Trump, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and Senator Bernie Sanders, who had proposed a sovereign wealth fund financed by a one-time 50% tax on leading AI companies. So yeah, definitely all the big companies this week either starting new companies going in completely different directions, or apparently talking with the federal government to give the American people a small slice of the AI pie. I don't know. We'll have to find out and see. But that was a lot. But we always have our little roundup at the end where we go over what's new and what's next. So some of these are maybe big stories that any other week might have made our top AI news list. Others are some rumors, some things around the corner, but let's get to it. Here we go. Our bullet point, what's new and what's next. So Anthropic released Sonnet 5 as the default Claude model, offering near Opus performance for all users. Yeah, this didn't even make our top story because Sonnet 5, I personally like it, but it's not really even a top 3 Anthropic model right now. So I don't even think it's actually that big of a story, although I think it's actually a really good model. Next, OpenClaw has landed on iPhone and Android. A new report says OpenAI has found a way to cut inference costs in half. And if that's true, that is a monumental deal. Apple has added MCP server to Safari, enable a direct AI agent web debugging and preview. That's big. Meta is reportedly cooking up a new model, which they've codenamed Watermelon, and it allegedly matches GPT 5.5 results, and it uses 10 times of Muse's compute. So yeah, their last model was Meta Muse, previously codenamed Avocado. So we'll see if this is their medium size or maybe their large size Muse model in Watermelon. Next, a report says that Alibaba banned the use of Claude code and ordered employees to remove Claude models over security concerns. We're not sure if that is data retention or something else. A new report says Anthropic is working with Samsung Samsung to make its own custom AI chips after OpenAI and Broadcom launched the Jalapeno chip. The White House is set to announce a new AI model and standards, which we just talked about. OpenAI teased a codex-related keyboard device with popular hardware maker Work Louder. The U.S. House passed the KIDS Act, adding a new online safety rules for social media and AI. It's not a law yet because it still needs the Senate and presidential approval. California signed the largest U.S. Gov AI deployment, with Anthropic giving Claude at 50% off. Google launched Nano Banana 2 Lite and Gemini Omni Flash. Anthropic launched Claude Science for drug discovery and biology. Anthropic released enhanced admin controls for Claude Enterprise. A new report says Zuckerberg talked about Meta's AI agents and said that they're progressing slower than expected. A new report said Ford brought human engineers back after AI missed quality check issues. Grok 4.5 has reportedly entered private beta at SpaceX and Tesla. So we'll see what is cooking with SpaceX's next model. OpenAI confirmed that GPT 5.6 Sol Ultra will be included in Codex. I know that's a small detail, but right now, unfortunately, you don't have GPT 5.5 Pro in Codex, but OpenAI did confirm that GPT 5.6 Sol Ultra, the big bad one, will be included in Codex. That's good. And then we have a couple things we went over in our Friday features show, which was actually on Thursday due to the observed federal holiday. So we talked about Notebook LM letting paid users generate 60-second vertical cinematic videos. So essentially 60-second vertical videos now available inside Notebook LM. ChatGPT Plus users in the US now have the new finance app. X launched a hosted MCP server. So now you can get all your Twitter data without having to go through the API. A little easier to send your agents to an MCP server. Like I talked about, OpenClaw now has their free iOS and Android app, and Cursor released an iOS app as well for paid users. And it looks pretty powerful by all accounts so far. All right, so that is a wrap. A ton of big AI news and development. So I understand because I do this every single day. But if you constantly find yourself trying to keep up with what's happening in the world of AI, that's literally what everyday AI is here for. So on Mondays, we do what we just did. It's the AI news that matters, mostly facts, a little bit of my commentary. Sometimes I accidentally throw in some hot takes, but we do that on Mondays. On Wednesdays, we normally do a AI working Wednesdays. We go hands-on demo style with a popular new release. We'll either have a poll in today's newsletter or tomorrow's newsletter. So I just do whatever you tell me to do for that. And then on Fridays, we do our Friday features, which is going over new features that are actually available today. So, and then Tuesdays, Thursdays, we switch up the shows. So I hope this is helpful. If so, I'd appreciate it if you could take 30 seconds out of your day to go subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Then go to our website at youreverydayai.com. So thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you back tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all. Here's the thing about AI at work. You can't use what you don't trust. The all-new Slackbot runs inside Slack's security boundary, only sees what you've already allowed it to see, and never trains on your data. Personal AI agent with the trust to actually put it to work. Slackbot from Slack. Learn more at slack.com.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.